Reborn 8 days before the apocalypse, my dad was forcing me to sell my house to save his illegitimate son. I turned around and sold the house to him at a low price, then took 1.88 million and the strongest war dog of the apocalypse straight to the most expensive villa in the city. Don't ask why. The answer is that before the -80-degree extreme cold arrives, I need to stuff all 2,000 cubic meters of space full. Xialuo, stop playing dead and get out here to open the door. The loud banging on the door jolted me awake from a nightmare, my body drenched in cold sweat. I shot upright and stared in disbelief at the familiar surroundings. I wasn't dismembered. I quickly checked myself from head to toe and confirmed all my parts were still there, including certain critical areas, completely intact. Combined with these familiar surroundings, I could be sure of one thing. I had been reborn. Thank Buddha and God for their blessing. This is rebirth, not transmigration. Before I died, I was tortured until I was barely human. Even my dick was cut off. If this were transmigration back here, I'd just off myself on the spot, and that would be the end of the whole book. I hurriedly pulled out my phone. 8:08 on August 8th, 2088. Auspicious enough to make people uneasy. Judging by the time, there were still 8 days left before the apocalypse arrived. 8 days is not exactly short, but some things can't be made up for with time alone, like awakening supernatural powers. In my previous life, I got by fairly well in the early days of the apocalypse thanks to my decent physical condition and a ruthless streak. But later, people who had awakened powers began to appear, and I just didn't have that talent. With a second chance at life, I had to find a way to change that. Bang, bang. Xialuo, if you don't open the door, I'll let the dog loose. Woof, woof, woof. The moment I heard the barking, my eyes lit up and I ran to open the door. Outside the door were 3 people and a dog. My dad Li Wei, my aunt Xiahe, and my cousin Xialuo. Their purpose for coming to me was simple: to make me, the older brother, fork over money to save someone. Note, fork over money, not lend money. Here's what happened. Xialuo had just started working when Li Wei bought him a car worth over 100,000. While driving the new car to pick up girls, the girl in the passenger seat was going too hard, distracting him, and he crashed into a luxury car by the roadside. Luckily, no one died, but he had to pay over 2 million in compensation. The ridiculous part was that Li Wei bought the car and Li Wei ran around handling everything afterward, but when Li Wei couldn't come up with that much money for the moment, he set his sights on me. What a fucked up move. We've been talking to you about the money for so long. Have you prepared it or not? Isn't it just 1.9 million? If it really comes to it, sell the house. This house should sell for at least 2.5 million anyway. And with the money left over, you can still buy a house back in your hometown. Li Wei sat on the sofa with a cold expression and said impassively, "Hell, why should I? I heard this in my previous life too, and hearing it again now still makes me laugh. 2.5 million? Do I look like some complete idiot?" After my mom divorced my dad, she worked from dawn to dusk and used her hard-earned money to get this house for me. It has nothing to do with anyone else. What's with that attitude? I'm your father. Li Wei snapped angrily. No matter what method you use, you must scrape together the money today. Are you really going to watch your cousin go to jail? In my previous life, they came to my door who knows how many times just to make me hand over the money. Li Wei's attitude in particular made me feel completely fucked over. Ever since I was little, he had always cared especially about Xialuo. After Xialuo got into university, it reached a peak. He treated him even better than he treated me, his own son. If my mom hadn't died early, I really would have wanted to ask her whether I was actually old Wang next door's kid. In my previous life, I longed for fatherly love and kept putting up with it. And in the end, I really did sell the house to help my cousin pay the money back. Now that I think about it, I was an idiot to the core. It was only after the apocalypse in my previous life that I learned the truth. The reason Li Wei treated me so badly was because he had always believed Xialuo was his son, the product of a stormy night with Xiahe. Conventional morality kept him from making it public, so he could only desperately try to make up for it. And as for me, although I wasn't some old Wang next door's kid, but I really wasn't Li Wei's biological son. My mom married him when I was 1 year old, on the condition that he would treat me like his own son. But in Li Wei's eyes, I was probably nothing but a fart. But getting another chance, after knowing the truth, I wasn't sad anymore. Without any blood relation, I couldn't be bothered with them, and instead took a careful look at the dog beside them. That relationship, actually, did make sense. It was a half-grown Rottweiler named Dahe. It looked a bit rough, but my eyes lit up. This was also why I let them in. I wanted to get this dog. Since I still hadn't figured out how to awaken my powers, I might as well use my rebirth advantage to find some reliable subordinates. As for beautiful women with supernatural talent, that could wait. Right now, this Dahe was absolutely the best candidate. In my previous life after the apocalypse, Xialuo was also just an ordinary person who hadn't awakened any powers, but he rode on the dog's coattails and, relying on Dahe, became a famous figure. Big brother, calm down. This is our Xiaowei's fault, and it's normal for Xialuo to have some emotions. Xiaohe spoke softly. Xialuo, for your aunt's sake, could you get us some tea? This woman was usually quite polite to me and would occasionally show concern for me. In front of everyone, she was a gentle, considerate, good woman. Otherwise, Li Wei wouldn't have always felt indebted to her and willingly given everything. Back when Li Wei divorced my mom, she had a hand in it too. Her methods were really something. Even more impressive was that this woman had never actually had anything with Li Wei, yet she still managed to fool him into serving the two of them like an ox and a horse for his whole life. But I couldn't be bothered with any of that. In my previous life, although these people didn't personally hurt me, once they had the means, they ignored me completely, without the slightest bit of family affection. I didn't respond and got up to go to the kitchen. Xiaohe thought I was going to prepare tea and felt a surge of joy. It seemed there was still hope for the money, and that her years of kindly concern for Li Xialuo hadn't been wasted. I came out quickly. What I had in my hand wasn't tea, but several sausages. Xiaohe's face turned green. What kind of manners are those, serving guests with sausages? Dahe, come here, something tasty. I shook the sausages. The three of them looked even darker than before. So they weren't for them? Was this me saying they weren't even as good as a dog? Dahe looked utterly confused. Usually it was just a bystander, and I wasn't warm to it either. So what was going on today? Rottweilers are intelligent, obedient, loyal, and brave, but they have a fatal flaw. They only obey their own owner. Fortunately, Dahe was still young and saw me often, so I wasn't a stranger to it. The sight of good food made it drool, but it still honestly stayed by Li Xiaowei's feet. Enough. Li Xialuo, can you be a little more mature? Your aunt said we should talk this over properly, and this is your attitude? I said flatly. If you think my attitude is bad, the door is to the right on your way out. I'm not seeing you off. Xiaohe hurried to smooth things over. All right, since Xialuo likes dogs, let him feed it first, and then we'll talk things over properly. Right now I had no intention of giving them money, let alone selling the house. This house wouldn't be an ideal shelter after the apocalypse either, but even if I had no use for it, I wouldn't let them have it cheap. All I wanted was to build a good relationship with Dahe and figure out a way to get it. Snatching it by force definitely wouldn't work. 3 people and 1 dog against me. I had no chance of winning. Besides, the apocalypse hadn't come yet, and the law still existed. To get the money, Li Xiaowei still gave Dahe the command. Panting with its tongue out, Dahe walked up to me. I picked up a sausage, removed the wrapper, and then tossed it straight into my own mouth. This really wasn't my fault. In my previous life, I starved so badly that now, the moment I see even the cheapest sausage, I instinctively can't resist the temptation. It wasn't that I wanted to fight a dog for food. Dahe looked aggrieved. Were you teasing the dog? Sorry, operational error. I unwrapped another one and tossed it to it. Dahe caught it precisely and wolfed it down. Favorability +1. After feeding it several in a row, I still couldn't think of a good way to win it over. Looks like I can only buy it with money. I'm just afraid they'll jack up the price on the spot. Just then, a voice sounded in my mind. Ding. Congratulations, host. The strongest doomsday shelter system is activating. Activation Mission 1. Stockpiling requires money first. To ensure the host has sufficient funds to stockpile supplies in advance for the apocalyptic natural disasters, please earn more than 1 million in liquid funds within 10 minutes. Based on the completion result, you will be rewarded with system storage space. I froze. My cheat ability is here, the strongest shelter system, but this activation mission is way too troublesome. If there's mission 1, there must also be 2 and 3. But thinking about it, I'm already quite satisfied. I originally thought reincarnation was the biggest advantage, but I didn't expect there to be a system 2. Nice. System prompt. Please complete the activation mission as soon as possible. Failure will result in selecting another host. I snapped back to my senses and felt troubled again. Other than this apartment, I don't have much savings. For someone who earns 3,800 a month, making 1,000 in 10 minutes would already be a blessing, let alone 1 million? Wait, the system said liquid funds. Then wouldn't selling the apartment do it? Although 10 minutes is extremely tight, and under normal circumstances I couldn't sell it or get the money in time, aren't there a few abnormal people right in front of me? I can also get Dahe at the same time. After feeding the last sausage, I looked at them. Alright, let's talk. It's not impossible for me to sell the apartment to save Li Xiaowei. Joy appeared on the 3 of their faces, but it quickly froze. 1.88 million. Transfer the money within 5 minutes, and the apartment is yours. What? 1.88 million? If we had money, would we be coming to you? Li Wei exploded on the spot. I said flatly, this apartment is worth more than 2.5 million. I have a friend who especially wants to buy it. I'll give you 3 seconds to think. If you won't buy it, I'll sell it to him, then go abroad for a trip and come back after a few months of fun. Li Wei was trembling with anger. I picked up a water cup and smashed it hard at his feet, and the shattered glass scared him into quickly dodging away. Time's up. If you're not buying, then get lost. I took out my phone and called a friend in front of them. Brother Xiao, about the 2.5 million we discussed last time for my apartment. The number is unlucky, so I'll sell it to you for 2.48 million. Pay immediately? Sure, I'll find you this afternoon. In fact, there was no friend wanting to buy the apartment at all. I was just putting on an act for them. But I believe they'd take the bait. After all, the apartment's value was right there. Xiaohe had already seen my determination and hurriedly said, Xialuo, we're family. We'll buy it. Li Wei gritted his teeth. Fine, I'll buy the apartment. But from now on, we sever all ties and are no longer family. I said calmly. Fine, since we're severing ties, the discounted price is gone. Special friendship price, 2.18 million, plus this black dog. All 3 of them panicked. Li Wei also regretted speaking rashly in the heat of the moment. Xiaohe lowered herself and said, Xialuo, for your aunt's sake, please save your cousin. 1.88 million, and we'll give you the dog too, all right? They took the bait. In fact, adding 300,000 later was just my little tactic, to make them focus on the money so they wouldn't realize what I really wanted was Dahe. I pretended I couldn't stand her tears and said impatiently, fine, one last time. 1.88 million plus Dahe. Sign the contract and transfer the money immediately. I need 7 days to find a new place, and after 7 days I'll vacate and transfer the property. What? You want me to pay right away even though you won't vacate and transfer the property until 7 days later? Li Wei got angry again. Expressionless, I said. If you don't want to buy it, then get lost. A price difference of 600,000 plus Li Xiaowei's situation. There was no way they wouldn't compromise. Before long, my phone received 1.88 million. Li Wei could only obediently make the transfer. The initiative had been in my hands the whole time. Leaving Dahe behind, the 3 of them finally left. Li Xiaowei felt no attachment at all to selling Dahe. He had only raised it to follow the trend and had no idea what he had just thrown away. In the previous life, after the apocalypse, he had been able to throw his weight around thanks to the dog. In this life, that's impossible. Looking at sorrowful-eyed Dahe, I chuckled. This was the dog known in the previous life for killing countless people and being nicknamed the indestructible cockroach dog, ranked 5th overall on the superpower rankings. And many superpowered individuals couldn't even figure out what its power was. They only knew that it was huge, with a body of iron and bronze, basically immune to physical and magical damage. To make so many powerful people admit they're inferior to a dog shows just how formidable it is. Ding. Congratulations, host, you have obtained 1.88 million in liquid funds. Rounded up, you are rewarded with 2,000 cubic meters of space. Awesome. The system hasn't even been officially activated yet, and just completing activation mission 1 is already this awesome. What does 2,000 cubic meters mean? In my previous life, before I died, I heard that even the most powerful space ability user only had 100 cubic meters. Ding. System activation mission 2 is now issued to deal with the apocalyptic natural disasters. Host, please build 2 safe lords estates within 6 days. The renovation cost for each must be no less than 10 million, to deal respectively with the extreme cold blizzard that is about to arrive and the flood 3 months later. After completion, you will be rewarded with 1 super enhancement for each of the 2 lords estates, and a small teleportation portal. The straight line distance between the 2 estates must not exceed 100 li. Friendly reminder. Complete Mission 2 to officially activate the strongest shelter system. Sure enough, there was a Mission 2. But the system is quite user-friendly. It clearly told me there's no Mission 3. Just completing the activation missions already gives awesome rewards. Now that I have the space, all I need to do next is choose 2 houses and turn them into safe houses, and I'll get the super enhancement and teleportation portal. With something this good, dying in the future will be hard even if I wanted to. Rebirth plus a system, awesome on top of awesome. I'm even more eager to see what good stuff there'll be after the system is officially activated. Maybe it can even let me obtain an ability. This has been my obsession for 2 lifetimes. But right now, I need to make money first. Renovating the 2 lords' estates will cost 10 million each, and stockpiling supplies also costs money. 1.88 million is far from enough. I also need to rely on my rebirth advantage and use the 2,000 cubic meter space to get things for free and fill it with supplies. Hello, Manager Wong. Are there any houses for rent in the Longting Villa district? An hour later, the agent Fatty Wong personally accompanied me to the Longting Villa district. This place was full of standalone luxury villas with huge gardens, like private estates. The location is remote, and the city's development hasn't reached this area yet. The Longting No. 1 villa I was looking at has a floor area of 1,200 square meters, a private swimming pool, luxurious decor, 8 bedrooms, 3 living rooms, and 6 bathrooms. Fully furnished with furniture and appliances, and comes with front and back gardens. The monthly rent is $150,000. The people who buy houses in a place like this are either rich or powerful, so they are rarely rented out. But right now, Longting happens to have 3 units available for rent. Of course, there's a reason why I was just thinking about making more money, yet turned around and came here to rent such an expensive villa. Mr. Lee, I've already told you the general details of No. 1 villa. May I ask what you're renting it for? Fatty Wong was just asking as a matter of routine, since the owner had specifically instructed him to. It's convenient for raising a dog. My old place is too small and doesn't give it enough room to move around. I'm worried it'll affect its physical and mental health. Xialuo looked at Dahe by his side and made up an excuse casually. Uffed. Fatty Wong had just taken a sip of water and immediately sprayed it out. Damn, is this what it really means when a person is worse off than a dog? Looking at the black dog quietly staying by Xialuo's side, Fatty Wong felt physically and mentally exhausted. In his next life, he wants to be a dog too. Naturally, Xialuo was talking nonsense. In fact, after the system required him to build 2 safe lords' estates, Xialuo had already had an idea in mind for the locations of the 2 estates. First, the 2 places can't be too close together. Of course, because of the teleportation range limit of the small teleportation portal, they definitely can't be too far apart either. So aside from the place where he originally lived, the other location Xialuo chose was this Longting Villa district. After renting the Longting No. 1 villa here, Xialuo would turn it into one of the lord's estates to deal with the blizzard that was about to arrive. And the building where he originally lived was quite tall. So Xialuo would also get a unit on the top floor and turn it into the other lord's estate, then use it to deal with the flood a few months later. As for why he was spending so much money to come here and rent this Longting No. 1 villa, there were actually several reasons. The first reason, making money. Taking advantage of being reborn, Xialuo was confident that coming here to rent a villa would not only cost him nothing, but would also let him make a fortune. By then, not only would he have the money to complete the system missions, but he would also have plenty of money to stockpile supplies. The second reason was revenge. In his previous life, Xialuo's final refuge was here, and he also died here later. There were people here who had caused his death. The third reason was actually for enjoyment. This villa complex has mountains and water, and Villa No. 1 is extremely large and luxuriously decorated. When the time comes, he would install more solar panels and prepare more large generators, water storage tanks, and the like. Even if the whole city lost water and power, he would not lack water or electricity here. At least during the snow disaster period at the beginning, he could live quite comfortably. The fourth reason was actually also a very important point. There would be a very important treasure here when the time came. After the apocalypse arrived, the whole world first went through extreme cold and snow disasters, floods. And then there was the third disaster, which lasted the longest. The third disaster was countless meteor showers falling from the sky. But among those meteor showers, some meteors concealed all kinds of monsters. Not only were those monsters powerful, but their abilities also varied. Some even carried viruses, and humans attacked by them would quickly turn into zombie-like creatures. So after the third disaster, there were not only zombies, but also extraterrestrial monsters. This was also why the state apparatus quickly collapsed. However, among those meteors, although some contained monsters, some others contained crystals that were extremely important to ability users. In his previous life, Xialuo was just an ordinary survivor, and he had not gone to many places in the apocalypse. He only knew that the meteors that fell in this Longting Villa complex contained the most crystals. In his previous life, all the crystals here were obtained by one ability user, creating a super powerhouse. Although Xialuo still did not know whether he could become an ability user after the system was activated. Even if he himself could not use them, he would not let others get such treasures cheaply. So he had to occupy Longting Villa first. Wang Pengzi was deeply struck by Xialuo's remark about using the villa to raise dogs, and after closing such a big deal, he was no longer that excited. After signing the contract with Xialuo and collecting the money, he hurried off to continue his work. Otherwise, let alone living in a big villa, he would soon be unable to pay this month's mortgage. It could only be said that being as tired as a dog had long since changed meaning. After taking Dahe around the villa for a look, Li Xiaoluo was very satisfied. Dahe, from now on this will be our home. From now on, guard the house well. As long as I have a bite to eat, I won't let you go hungry. Of course, what Li Xiaoluo was also thinking was, if I really have nothing to eat, Dahe, you wouldn't have the heart to let me starve, right? Dahe vigorously wagged its little short tail beside him, and it was hard to tell whether it understood or not. But that didn't matter. Dahe was already very smart to begin with, and after it awakened its ability, it would become even smarter. By then, he wouldn't even need to use it like a dog. Right, it feels like the name Dahe is still a bit too ordinary. In the future, it might not suit Dahe's temperament anymore, and as its master, my own status would drop along with it. It has to be renamed. Waiting online, pretty urgent. Right, in the future I will be the lord of the shelter, and Dahe is my first subordinate. So let's call it General. Dahe, from now on you have a new name, General. You like it, right? Woof woof. Such a domineering name. I knew you'd be very satisfied. You're getting a bargain. Li Xiaoluo automatically translated Dahe's "No, General's" meaning. Woof woof woof. No need to thank me. This is what your master should do. In the future, just fight monsters properly and protect me well. Just think, in the future when facing enemies, I'd shout, "Release General." It should have the same effect as releasing a Black Panther, right? Li Xiaoluo contentedly patted General's dog head, then played with it for a while. While deepening their bond, it also helped him get familiar with his new name. After playing with General for a while, Li Xiaoluo picked up his phone and prepared to head out. Time is money, so he had to hurry. General immediately came trotting after him. Maybe because he had a new owner and had just changed territory too. It made him feel very insecure. Right now, all he wanted was to stay by Li Xiaoluo's side. All right, I'll take you along, Li Xiaoluo said with a smile as he patted General's head. Woof woof. General barked once, seeming to think his new owner was pretty good and easy to get along with. His former owner was always yelling at him and would even hit him sometimes. Of course, the reason General accepted Li Xiaoluo so quickly was also because Li Xiaoluo and he were already familiar with each other. In the past, Li Xiaowei would occasionally ask Li Xiaoluo to help look after General for a day or two. With General in tow, Li Xiaoluo first went to Villa number 2 not far next door. After ringing the doorbell and saying a few words, a middle-aged woman in her 40s, fairly well-maintained, soon walked out. Behind her followed a young man with dyed blonde hair and a somewhat pale complexion, looking a little sickly. Li Xiaoluo had just said that he was the owner of Villa number 1, that he had just moved in and was not very familiar with the area yet, so he had come to pay a visit to his neighbors. After all, a close neighbor is better than a distant relative. This excuse was actually a bit laughable, especially for ordinary people renting in the city. They might live somewhere for years and still only see their next-door neighbors a handful of times. But it also depends on the situation. In a high-end villa district like this, the people who can live here are either rich or powerful. Some people move in here while putting on airs beyond their means, possibly just to get access to the connections and resources here. So when Li Xiaoluo said he was the new owner of Villa number 1 and took the initiative to come pay a visit, the owner of Villa number 2 certainly would not offend him. And the main reason Li Xiaoluo came here was that sickly young man. The sickly young man's name was Zhou Junjie. He didn't know Li Xiaoluo, but Li Xiaoluo knew him. He was one of the chief culprits who caused Li Xiaoluo's death in his previous life. After zombies appeared in the third disaster in his previous life, Li Xiaoluo was lucky enough to escape the city, and then came with a group of survivors to this villa district to avoid danger. But at that time, monsters and zombies had also appeared in this villa district, and Zhou Junjie was complete dead weight in a fight. So when facing monsters and zombies, he was scared out of his wits. Li Xiaoluo was still kind-hearted back then, so he saved Zhou Junjie, who was just about to lose his life. And afterward Zhou Junjie became Li Xiaoluo's underling, without the slightest trace of the arrogance of a rich young master. But at the time, Li Xiaoluo had no idea that it was entirely because Zhou Junjie was deeply scheming. Later, once Zhou Junjie found backing, it became Li Xiaoluo's dead end. Li Xiaoluo had come to find Zhou Junjie now, and naturally he would not kill him right away. After all, order had not yet collapsed. Li Xiaoluo came to find Zhou Junjie for his family's money, and also for the backer Zhou Junjie had in his previous life. In the Zhou family's living room, after the three of them got acquainted with each other, Zhou's mother had the two young men chat while she left. "Mr. Li, I wonder where you used to make your name? How is it that I haven't seen you in our circles?" Zhou Junjie basically knew or had at least seen all the rich second-generation heirs or prominent young people in this city, but he truly had no impression of someone like Li Xiaoluo. Li Xiaoluo was not flustered at all. He really was an ordinary office worker, with nothing but a house to his name. But Zhou Junjie's family was rich. "I'm from Hu province. and I came over here to invest. It's just that I don't have any connections yet. So you're from another province. Investing? Then aren't you basically a money-spending benefactor? Zhou Junjie immediately became interested. Mr. Li, how much capital are you planning to invest? What field are you investing in? Maybe I can help. Li Xialuo said calmly, starting with 1, and then we'll see. Zhou Junjie said, starting with 10 million? In his eyes, that investment amount was far too ordinary, and his interest immediately waned. Li Xialuo said, what I meant was starting with one small goal. As for the upper limit, probably 10. This time it's just for practice. I won't play too big. As soon as Zhou Junjie heard this, he thought, whoa, that's starting directly at 100 million. It seemed this Li Xialuo had quite a background, someone worth befriending. Come, young Master Li, let's have a good talk. In this city, I still have some connections. Zhou Junjie immediately became enthusiastic. His allowance was tightly controlled by the old man, so he could only rely on himself to make money to chase girls and live it up. Sure, I'd be delighted. Li Xialuo also appeared very interested. After Zhou Junjie finished talking through all his so-called connections, Li Xialuo let it go in one ear and out the other. He hadn't come here to talk business at all. Sorry, I need to use the bathroom. Li Xialuo suddenly stood up. I'll have the maid take you there. Zhou Junjie called over the maid and had her lead Li Xialuo to the restroom. Watching Li Xialuo's departing figure, the corners of Zhou Junjie's mouth curled up. It seemed Li Xialuo was as weak in that department as he was. It had only been a few minutes, and he already needed to go to the bathroom. Sure enough, a common problem among rich second-generation heirs. Hard on the kidneys. Li Xialuo followed the maid to the Zhou family's villa bathroom. The bathroom was very large and extremely luxurious. Li Xialuo locked the door, but he didn't take off his pants. Instead, he stepped onto the toilet, and after fumbling around on top of it for a while, he finally opened a gap. Inside, a large amount of gold and cash was immediately revealed. Li Xialuo knew their value, a full 200 million. In his previous life, Zhou Junjie's father had even wanted to use this money to buy Li Xialuo's loyalty. If the apocalypse hadn't been going on for long at the time, Li Xialuo might indeed have been tempted. But soon afterward, the state machinery collapsed, and money naturally became worthless paper. But right now, money was not worthless paper, and Li Xialuo had come precisely for it. Li Xialuo now had spatial storage, so he could easily take all this money away, and he didn't even have to worry about being discovered. First, Zhou Junjie's father had hidden this money very well and normally wouldn't check on it. Second, even if he had a sudden whim to look, he wouldn't really dare make a fuss because this money had been obtained through improper means. Third, even if he discovered the money was gone, no matter how hard he racked his brains, he'd probably only suspect there was a thief in the family. After all, Li Xialuo had only borrowed the bathroom for a moment. How could he possibly carry away so much cash and gold? In any case, once he took this money, he'd have funds for stockpiling supplies. After getting the money, Li Xialuo restored everything to its original state, then pretended to press the toilet's flush button. Whoosh! The sound of that toilet flushing represented 200 million going down the drain. Now that he had this 200 million, Li Xialuo's cash flow was even more abundant, and it was funding provided by his enemy at that, which felt great. Actually, Li Xialuo had other ways to get money, too, such as going to some predatory loan or nude photo loan to borrow money. There was no telling how many lending platforms there were now. Li Xialuo didn't need to care how high the interest was or how shady they were. He could just fleece them directly. Anyway, he didn't need to pay it back. It was just that Li Xialuo thought this way of fleecing them was a bit slow, and the amounts were small. Besides, what could be more satisfying than using an enemy's money? After coming out of the bathroom, Li Xialuo saw that Zhou Junjie seemed to be on the phone, and a lewd smile appeared on his face from time to time. When Li Xialuo got closer, he only heard the name Shen Miaomiao, and then Zhou Junjie hung up the phone when he saw Li Xialuo come out. Shen Miaomiao. A glint flashed through Li Xialuo's eyes. Then an incomparably beautiful face surfaced in his mind. In this lifetime, this woman would belong to me, Li Xialuo. Of course, for Li Xialuo to win Shen Miaomiao. Besides the fact that she was beautiful and had an exceptionally good figure, there was an even more important reason. After the apocalypse, Shen Miaomiao was known as the Ice Queen. She ranked third on the superpower rankings, 2 places above the general, who was ranked 5th. In his previous life, Shen Miaomiao was Zhou Junjie's woman and his backer, and it was even Shen Miaomiao who took the initiative to approach Zhou Junjie after the apocalypse. At first, no one could believe it. A superpowered lady so beautiful and powerful would actually fancy Zhou Junjie? One had to know that at the time, Zhou Junjie had not awakened any superpower, and his body had long since been drained. He probably could not even beat a slightly stronger woman. But Shen Miaomiao was utterly loyal to Zhou Junjie, and no one could even think of harming him. If Li Xiaowei in the previous life was someone who rode a dog's power, thriving by relying on the general's dog, then Zhou Junjie was definitely the apocalypse's ultimate kept man. But there are no walls without cracks, and only later did Li Xiaoluo learn that there was a story between Shen Miaomiao and Zhou Junjie. Shen Miaomiao, 20 years old this year, a student at the University of Media, her father died young, and her mother raised her and her younger sister, who is 2 years younger than her. Besides being beautiful, Shen Miaomiao was also a very kind and pitiable girl from a poor family. Logically speaking, she should have had nothing to do with a rich second-generation heir like Zhou Junjie. However, before the apocalypse, some of Zhou Junjie's dubious friends often liked going to universities to pick up college girls, and by chance they discovered this hidden gem of a girl, Shen Miaomiao. But the luxury cars that had always worked for them lost their effect in front of Shen Miaomiao, and several rich second-generation heirs returned in defeat one after another. This aroused Zhou Junjie's interest, especially after he saw Shen Miaomiao. He was utterly stunned by her beauty and swore he would definitely get her. But Zhou Junjie was also a very calculating person. Knowing that his dubious friends had been rebuffed by Shen Miaomiao, he changed his strategy. Zhou Junjie hired a professional private investigator to keep an eye on Shen Miaomiao at all times, waiting for an opportunity. Just now, Zhou Junjie received a call from the private investigator, and he knew his opportunity had come. It turned out that just in the past 2 days, Shen Miaomiao's younger sister had been diagnosed with a serious illness, and the medical expenses might require 2 or 3 million. This was Zhou Junjie's chance to spend 2 or 3 million all at once to pick up a girl. He was actually a bit reluctant. Because he was always causing trouble, his allowance had already been restricted in units of millions, so he had to spend more frugally. However, that investigator had already found out clearly that Shen Miaomiao's sister's initial treatment costs would only need about 1 million. Maybe if the treatment was ineffective, there would be no need for subsequent expenses. Even if the treatment worked well, that would be a matter for the future. By then, perhaps he would already be completely tired of Shen Miaomiao, so her sister's follow-up treatment costs. What would they have to do with him? So he was still willing to spend 1 million to get a great beauty. In his previous life, things really did turn out just as Zhou Junjie had imagined. In order to save her sister, Shen Miaomiao ultimately chose to agree to become Zhou Junjie's woman. But because she had to take care of her sister, before Zhou Junjie had the chance to get Shen Miaomiao's body, the apocalypse arrived. After the apocalypse, Zhou Junjie lost the money power of a rich second-generation heir, and for a time became one of the lowest of the low. Before Li Xiaoluo met him, he had even suffered quite a few serious injuries. It was said that when the apocalypse had just begun, in the villa district where Zhou Junjie lived, several security guards had taken control of the area. One of the guards directly performed a castration operation on Zhou Junjie. Because before the apocalypse, Zhou Junjie sought thrills by sleeping with that security guard's wife. Sleeping with her was one thing, but he even deliberately made sure that security guard found out. Before the apocalypse, that security guard knew Zhou Junjie's influence. He had also thought about dying together with Zhou Junjie, but in the end he still didn't have the courage. After the apocalypse, he finally found a chance to take revenge. This is also why, after the powerful Shen Miaomiao found Zhou Junjie with her younger sister. After Zhou Junjie gained the power of life and death over the villa district, his mind became twisted, and he castrated almost all the men, including Li Xiaoluo. When Li Xiaoluo came to see Zhou Junjie, besides coming to his house to get money, he also wanted to know whether Zhou Junjie had already given Shen Miaomiao money. Although Li Xiaoluo knew the general ins and outs of the matter, he didn't know the exact timing. If Zhou Junjie had already given Shen Miaomiao money, then things would become somewhat difficult. Because Shen Miaomiao was a very traditional woman who was stubborn to the end. If she took the money and agreed to Zhou Junjie, then it would be very hard to change her mind. This is also why in the previous life, Shen Miaomiao went through so much hardship to find Zhou Junjie. And after learning that Zhou Junjie was just an ordinary person without powers, she still chose to stay with Zhou Junjie to repay his kindness. Even after knowing Zhou Junjie was a eunuch, she still remained loyal and never abandoned him. Zhou Junjie could kill people, sure, but if someone wanted to kill Zhou Junjie, that was not allowed. That's how utterly unreasonable she was. In this life, besides stockpiling supplies, Li Xiaoluo also had to stockpile beauties. Otherwise, who would protect him? And if all the fighting and killing had to be done by him personally, how degrading would that be? But fortunately, judging from Zhou Junjie's phone call just now, this treasure of a girl had not yet been won over by him. Otherwise, no matter how regrettable it was, Li Xiaoluo would have had to destroy a flower with cruel hands. Seeing Li Xiaoluo come out, Zhou Junjie immediately put on a smiling face and said, "Young Master Li, I still have something to take care of later. How about we exchange contact information and set another time to talk about the investment?" A trace of displeasure appeared on Li Xiaoluo's face. "Young Master Zhou, surely you're not looking down on this little bit of money of mine, right? You just happen to have something to do at such a convenient time?" Zhou Junjie quickly waved his hands and said, "Young Master Li, don't misunderstand. My girlfriend's younger sister is sick and is currently hospitalized at the First People's Hospital. As her brother-in-law, of course I have to go visit. Damn it, shameless bastard, since when did my sister-in-law become your younger sister?" But this was actually very good. Now he also knew where Shen Miaomiao's younger sister was hospitalized. Later, there would be no need to follow Zhou Junjie. No, that still wasn't safe enough. He had to delay Zhou Junjie's trip to the hospital. He himself had to get there earlier than Zhou Junjie. Very quickly, Li Xiaoluo came up with an idea. "Young Master Zhou, as it happens, I'm also going to the First People's Hospital this afternoon to visit my sister-in-law. But I haven't bought a car since coming here. So how about I catch a ride with you? You're also going to the People's Hospital to visit your sister-in-law?" Zhou Junjie looked at Li Xiaoluo somewhat strangely. Actually, letting him catch a ride wasn't a problem considering Li Xiaoluo's status. But could there really be such a coincidence? Both to the First People's Hospital, both to visit a sister-in-law? Seeing Zhou Junjie's expression, Li Xiaoluo said calmly, "I was presumptuous. I'll just call a ride-hailing car. Then I've disturbed you enough today, so I'll take my leave first." Li Xiaoluo didn't even politely call him Young Master Zhou anymore, clearly somewhat angry. "General, let's go." Li Xiaoluo called out to General. General was stunned for a moment, but quickly reacted that he was being called. He hurriedly trotted over eagerly. Zhou Junjie, standing to the side, remained unmoved. Even if he could tell that Li Xiaoluo was somewhat displeased, so what? After all, he was a second-generation rich kid of some standing, okay? Was he really supposed to curry favor with Li Xiaoluo, whom he had just met? And he still had to go pick up girls later, so where would he get the mood to care whether Li Xiaoluo felt good or not? But after taking just a few steps, Li Xiaoluo seemed to remember something again. Fumbled around in his pocket, took out a few things, and then walked over to Zhou Junjie. "Today's visit was a bit abrupt, and I even came empty-handed. So let this little bit count as a small gift from me, or as the fee for using the restroom." Zhou Junjie looked at the things in Li Xiaoluo's hand and immediately widened his eyes. 3 gleaming gold bars. Zhou Junjie could tell at a glance that each one weighed about 100 grams. At the current gold price, the 3 bars were worth at least 150,000. Damn, he had seen people show off before, but he had truly never seen anyone better at showing off than himself. Even when he usually went out showing off, he was never so extravagant as to give away gold bars right off the bat. Never mind gold bars. Even gold nuggets would be beyond him. The truth was, his pocket money just wasn't up to it. Although he gave Li Xiaoluo 99 points for this round of showing off, he felt so good. Zhou Junjie glanced around and, after making sure his mother hadn't come out, immediately took the gold bars Li Xiaoluo handed over and quickly stuffed them into his pocket. "Funds for picking up girls plus 150k, nice." A faint, meaningful smile appeared at the corner of Li Xiaoluo's mouth. Then he turned and left. At this moment, Zhou Junjie hurriedly spoke up. "Young Master Li, what I said before really didn't mean anything else, and I definitely didn't mean that I didn't believe you. I was just asking casually. Weren't you going to catch a ride? Wait for me at the door for a moment. I'll go to the garage and get the car right away. Then I'll trouble you." Li Xiaoluo replied flatly. After waiting a few minutes at the entrance of the Zhou family villa, the roar of an engine rang out as Zhou Junjie drove a red sports car to a stop in front of Li Xiaoluo. "Young Master Li, please get in." Zhou Junjie personally got out and opened the door, taking the initiative to invite Li Xiaoluo into the car. Li Xiaoluo did not get in right away, but instead sized up the sports car. "Young Master Zhou, your Lamborghini is pretty nice. How much did you pay for it?" Young Master Li, this is a Ferrari. It cost 2 million renminbi when I bought it." Zhou Junjie looked at Li Xiaoluo again with a strange expression. "Oh, 4 million for a Lamborghini is indeed quite a bargain. How about transferring it to me? This isn't a Lammer." Zhou Junjie had just started to speak, but before he could finish, the latter half of the sentence got stuck. Zhou Junjie carefully confirmed again. "Young Master Li, you're saying this fair? This car, you'll take it for 4 million? Li Xiaoluo nodded. "I quite like this Lamborghini, and I just happen to not have a car for getting around, which is rather inconvenient, so I'll buy it. I wonder if you're willing to sell it." Sell? Yes, that's right, it is a Lamborghini. Since young Master Li is willing to buy it, even if I'm reluctant, I'm willing to sell. All right then, drive the car to my villa." "No, young Master Li, aren't we going to the Vehicle Administration Office to transfer the title? No need to go through so much trouble. Anyway, I just bought it to drive around casually for a few days. Zhou Junjie. He was completely dumbfounded now. Either Li Xialuo was a true super-rich tycoon, or he had just come out of a psychiatric hospital. It was one thing for him to insist on pointing at a Ferrari and calling it a Lamborghini. He was willing to call a stag a horse against his conscience. But what the hell was this about buying a sports car and being too lazy even to transfer the title? This wasn't buying groceries. And a 4 million car, just to drive for a few days? Lavishly inhuman. Simply even more lavishly inhuman than himself. Today, Zhou Junjie had finally seen what it meant that there is always a higher mountain and always someone better out there. Following behind Li Xialuo, Zhou Junjie slowly drove the sports car to Villa Number 1. Sitting in the car, Zhou Junjie grew more and more excited as he thought about it. He had originally thought that Shen Miaomiao's matter would require him to bleed heavily this time. But who would have thought there really was such a good thing as pie falling from the sky? My second-hand Ferrari, no, Lamborghini, sold for 4 million. Then I can use 1 million to buy Shen Miaomiao, and still buy a new Lamborghini worth 2 million. In the end, there will still be 1 million left. If this isn't pie falling from the sky, then what is? As for whether Li Xialuo was messing with him, Zhou Junjie felt he wouldn't be. After all, they were both people of status, and this was still his turf. If anything happened, he could just call security. Young Master Li, where should I park the car for you? Also about this money. After arriving at Villa Number 1, Zhou Junjie asked. Li Xialuo then said, Young Master Zhou, I'm buying the car for 4 million, and there's also a small favor I need your help with. Hearing Li Xialuo's words, Zhou Junjie suddenly understood. So this was what he had been waiting for. It seemed he had been happy a bit too early. Young Master Li, saying it's a favor is too formal. If there's anything I can do, I'll do my best. Li Xialuo expressed his thanks. Then he said, I want to pay for the car in gold, and besides that I have some more gold that I need you to help me sell. That's it. Zhou Junjie found it a little hard to believe. How was this any difficult task? Seeing Zhou Junjie agree, Li Xialuo went back inside the villa to get the gold. In just a few minutes, Li Xialuo came out carrying a cardboard box. Inside were 30 kilograms of gold, worth about 15 million. Seeing that Li Xialuo had so much gold, Zhou Junjie was genuinely startled. He even wondered whether Li Xialuo was a jewelry store robber, but in this day and age, that basically seemed impossible. As for whether the gold was fake, there was no need to worry. Zhou Junjie still had some skill in appraisal and knew this gold was definitely real. In addition, Li Xialuo gave Zhou Junjie a bank account, saying that after the gold was sold, he just needed to transfer the money to Li Xialuo's account. In other words, if the gold wasn't sold, Zhou Junjie wouldn't need to pay a single cent. He even let Zhou Junjie get out of the car holding the gold after the two of them drove out of the villa, then drove off in the sports car, leaving Zhou Junjie alone in a daze amid the sports car's exhaust. Damn, what kind of person was this? He just tossed dozens of kilograms of gold to him like that, and then ran off. Wasn't he afraid Zhou Junjie would just swallow up all that gold? As for whether Li Xialuo had tricked him out of his supercar, Zhou Junjie had no such thought at all. After all, a supercar was different from this unverified gold. The supercar was still under his name. After grumbling a few times, Zhou Junjie still called a friend, preparing to sell the gold. As for the beauty at the First People's Hospital, he could only go there later. But what Zhou Junjie didn't know was that Li Xialuo had already driven his sports car to the First People's Hospital. Li Xialuo walked into the First People's Hospital. Naturally, a big hospital could never lack people seeking treatment, but however bustling it was now, in a few days it would be just as miserable. Li Xialuo had heard what illness Shen Miaomiao's younger sister had, so he went straight to the 3rd floor. Doctor, please, give me a little more time. I'll go think of a way to raise the money right away. Just after arriving on the 3rd floor, Li Xialuo heard a pleading voice. A beautiful young woman in her 20s was repeatedly bowing to a doctor in a white coat. Shen Miaomiao, I'm sorry, but the hospital has its rules. If you still don't pay today, there's nothing I can do. Li Xiaoluo's eyes lit up. What luck, finding her without any effort at all. To run into Shen Miaomiao so quickly, and it felt like the timing was perfect too. Shen Miaomiao was very tall and slender, at least over 1.7 meters, and although she was only wearing an ordinary white short-sleeved shirt, her skin was snowy white and tender, and her face was as lovely as peach blossoms, as if she had dazzled the entire hospital. The key was that her figure was also extremely good. Visually, she was definitely at least 36E. But at this moment, Shen Miaomiao was in tears, looking so pitiful that anyone would feel sorry for her. The confusion and helplessness in her eyes stirred a strong protective instinct in many men. Many men had already finished seeing the doctor, but were still unwilling to leave the hospital, just to steal another glance at Shen Miaomiao or to run into her by chance in the hallway. Every time they saw Shen Miaomiao, as beautiful as an angel and somewhat shy and timid around strangers, those people exclaimed that they believed in love again. However, although on this floor, whether male patients or doctors, most men were drooling over Shen Miaomiao, at this moment no one dared step forward to protect her, because they simply lacked the means. The men here had basically long since found out Shen Miaomiao's situation. She had a younger sister whose treatment would cost over $1 million in the early stage alone, and the expenses afterward might be a bottomless pit. Who would dare play the hero and save the beauty if their family didn't have a gold mine? After all, beauty can't be eaten as food. But what no one expected was that someone really was willing to spend lavishly just to win a beauty's smile. How much does she need to pay? I'll pay for her. With just one sentence, Xialuo instantly became the coolest guy on the third floor. Countless people looked at him with disbelief and envy in their eyes. Women envied Shen Miaomiao, and men envied Xialuo. The men especially. If they had money, they would also be willing to pay for Shen Miaomiao. Haven't you seen those female celebrities online? The price for merely accompanying someone to a meal is astronomical. And the Shen Miaomiao in front of them was far more beautiful than those female celebrities. Shen Miaomiao stared blankly at the suddenly appearing Xialuo. Hearing that he wanted to give her money, she did not look happy. Instead, she became even more flustered and confused. Not knowing whether to refuse or accept, she stood there at a loss. What a silly girl. This was the real Shen Miaomiao. Although she was as beautiful as a fairy, she didn't know how to dress up. Strong-willed yet timid, Xialuo stepped forward, glared at Shen Miaomiao, and said, "What are you looking at?" Then Xialuo loudly said to the people around him, "Everyone, judge for yourselves. This woman dated me for 3 years, and then suddenly said she wanted to break up with me. Her reason was even that I was too handsome, which made her feel insecure. Damn it. If I hadn't been a little more cautious, she really would have fooled me." Ugh, some men didn't believe Xialuo's nonsense, and his narcissism made them want to throw up. But most of the onlookers showed expressions of sudden understanding, thinking that explained why a rich man had suddenly appeared and spent a fortune. So he was her boyfriend. Only Shen Miaomiao was still completely bewildered. After coming to her senses, she wanted to say something, but by then she saw Xialuo already pulling the doctor away to discuss the payment. It was as if she had become an outsider. Xialuo was especially overbearing, never asking for her opinion at all, nor giving her a chance to speak. Shen Miaomiao hurriedly followed. She wanted to ask Xialuo what exactly he was up to. Though she was usually a bit silly and somewhat withdrawn, she wasn't stupid. No kindness comes without a reason. If not for lust, then for gain. This man who had suddenly appeared definitely had an ulterior motive. And she was just a poor student. Other than her body, what else could make him spend so much money? For her younger sister, Shen Miaomiao could actually agree, but at the very least she should be given some time to think, right? How could anyone be so forceful? Shen Miaomiao was like a put-upon young wife, following behind Xialuo and the doctor in tiny steps, then watching them go to the ward to see her younger sister, then pay the fees and get the medicine, bustling about for quite a while. She felt like she had become the extra one, as if the person lying in the hospital bed were Xialuo's sister. Once the payment was made and the money spent, Xialuo felt refreshed. Spending money made him happy. After the general, another capable right-hand assistant had arrived. It was still uncertain whether the system could make Xialuo a badass, superpowered being in this life. So Xialuo had to secure a few safeguards for himself first. And she was also a delicate beauty with a good personality. Who wouldn't like that? Besides, it was buy one get one free, a huge promotional bargain. After the apocalypse, Shen Miaomiao was known as the Ice Queen and ranked third on the superpower leaderboard. Although her younger sister was not very strong in combat, she had an extremely rare support class, also called a planter. In short, a huge profit. After paying the money, Xialuo had no time to answer Shen Miaomiao's endless questions. He left her 10,000 in cash to nourish herself and not get any thinner from hunger. Then left behind a line telling her to go to Villa number 1 in Longting if she ran into difficulties, and walked away coolly. After all, Shen Miaomiao needed to take care of her sister now and had no time to build a relationship with Xialuo, so it was better to talk about it later. Only Shen Miaomiao was left somewhat dazed in the wind. All of this had happened far too suddenly. But she finally felt relieved. Her sister could be saved. At the same time, she firmly remembered the address Xialuo had given her. If he did not come later, then she would go there to find him. Not long after Xialuo left the hospital, his phone suddenly chimed with a text message. Ding, 11 million yuan had been deposited into the bank card. Heh, Zhou Junjia works fast. He got it done so quickly and didn't even charge a handling fee. But next, Li Xialuo still needed to convert the remaining gold and cash into liquid funds, so it would be easier to purchase supplies. As for Zhou Junjie, after finding a friend to sell the gold Li Xialuo had given him, he immediately borrowed a car from another friend and raced to the First People's Hospital at top speed. His men had long since found out which ward Shen Miaomiao's younger sister was staying in, and then successfully found Shen Miaomiao. Seeing Shen Miaomiao's pretty face and stunning figure, Zhou Junjie's heart instantly burned with desire. Shen Miaomiao, I can help pay your sister's medical expenses. On one condition, you become my woman for 3 years, and whatever I tell you to do, you do it. Who the hell are you? Are you insane? Her boyfriend has already paid Shen Miaomiao's sister's medical expenses. Before Shen Miaomiao could speak, the doctor beside her, who was discussing the treatment plan with her, couldn't hold back any longer. Her boyfriend already paid? Since when did Shen Miaomiao have a boyfriend? Zhou Junjie was left dumbfounded by the retort, and so furious he could spit 3 liters of blood. Bank card balance: 199,999,999 yuan. Li Xialuo looked at his balance. It wasn't that much, just 1 yuan short of 200 million. This money would be used to renovate the Lord's manor and then stockpile supplies. If he spent carefully, Li Xialuo felt it would barely be enough. As for what to stockpile for the apocalypse, Li Xialuo, as a reborn survivor, naturally had the most authority to speak on the matter. In the early stage, it would definitely be food and water, cold weather clothing, and so on. After all, only by surviving the natural disasters at the beginning could there be any future. When the apocalypse first begins, no matter whether you're a female celebrity or the richest man, without food or drink, even an iron body can't hold out. In order to survive, sometimes for a piece of moldy bread or some water, some survivors would risk their lives to snatch it, while others would sell their bodies. However, by the time of the third disaster, the shortage of food and water had improved somewhat. After all, when food was lacking, there were plant-type superpowered users. When water resources were lacking, there were also water-type superpowered users. But it was only some improvement, or rather, the lives of certain privileged people improved. The survivors at the very bottom still had to endure hunger. Because ability users are not omnipotent either, and using their abilities consumes crystals. As for later in the apocalypse, for some capable people, food was no longer the most precious thing. Tobacco, alcohol, crystals, these were the truly valuable supplies. But for Li Xialuo, the priority now was definitely to stockpile food and supplies first. Because things like abilities only appeared later. In the early stage, there were still several world-ending disasters to survive first. If you can't make it through the first few disasters, then the later period of ability awakening naturally will have nothing to do with you. So in the early stages of the apocalypse, having food and staying alive are the most important things. In the apocalypse of his previous life, Li Xialuo survived for more than a year, but there was not a single day when he ate his fill. Originally a sturdy young man weighing 130 jin, in the end he had wasted away to only about 70 jin. He had truly experienced what it felt like to be blown away by strong winds. So for now, he wasn't going to think about anything else. Other supplies could wait, but food definitely had to be stockpiled first. And having lived again, in this life he had to feast on meat and fish every day after the apocalypse, or else it would be an insult to the suffering he endured in his previous life. Li Xialuo first rented a somewhat remote warehouse near Longting Villa. The warehouse was very large, a full 2,000 square meters. Originally, the landlord wanted a minimum lease of 3 months. Li Xialuo only wanted to rent it for 8 days, so he was somewhat unwilling. But when he heard that 8 days would be paid as a full month's rent, the landlord immediately beamed and signed the contract, then left the key and went on his way. The money was just too easy to make. He really couldn't refuse. "Hello, who's this?" Just after renting the warehouse, Li Xialuo's phone rang, and he answered it casually. "Li Xialuo, didn't you save my phone number?" Li Xialuo recognized the voice on the phone. It seemed to be a not very familiar colleague. "No, I didn't. What do you want?" The other end fell silent for a few seconds. "The team leader asked me to tell you that you didn't come to work today, and you didn't ask for leave either. He's very angry and told you to get over here immediately, or you won't need to come tomorrow." "Got it. Then exactly when are you coming over?" "I said I got it. I'm not going tomorrow." The other side fell silent again. This Li Xialuo really wasn't playing by the usual script. He had taken the initiative to call Li Xialuo because he wanted to show himself off a bit in front of the team leader. But how had things turned out like this? He hadn't even said anything that harsh just now. Li Xialuo couldn't care less about what the other person was thinking and hung up directly. He hadn't planned to ask for his wages or resign anyway, so there was no need to waste words. However, Suddenly receiving a call from a colleague brought back quite a few memories for Li Xialuo. The company Li Xialuo worked for was fairly sizable. And although the benefits were average, the work atmosphere was actually pretty good, and there were quite a few beautiful women too. Li Xiaoluo's behavior just now doesn't count. After all, he had just been reborn from the cruel apocalypse, and had no mind for pleasantries. The person who called just now wasn't bad either. After all, there are always one or two rather annoying people wherever you go. Li Xialuo had originally planned to go stockpile supplies, but this phone call suddenly gave him an idea. Li Xialuo found someone on WeChat, a salesperson from Li Xiaoluo's company. Although Li Xialuo and he were not from the same department, they were fairly familiar. Then Li Xiaoluo called him. Old Wang, there's a big job from a rich guy. You interested? What big job? Before long, a white SUV stopped not far from Li Xiaoluo. Then one man and 3 women got out of the car, most of them young, good-looking men and women. Among the 4, the one who got out of the driver's seat was a young man. Old Wang, the very person Li Xiaoluo had just spoken with on the phone. His name wasn't important. Old Wang was a salesperson at the company, but in their spare time, they also took private gigs to earn some extra money. The big job Li Xiaoluo mentioned was actually just to have him come over and run errands for him. In Li Xiaoluo's view, anyway, it was free labor. Li Xiaoluo, the tycoon you mentioned can't be yourself, can it? Looking at Li Xiaoluo leaning against the sports car, Old Wang's eyes were practically popping out. What was going on? After not seeing him for just one night, there was suddenly a sports car driving tycoon around him. The main thing was that Old Wang used to feel a bit superior in front of Li Xiaoluo, which made this rather hard to take. Li Xiaoluo, it's me, Old Wang. Li Xiaoluo said. All right, let's talk business first. Oh, okay, go ahead. By the way, you said to call a few more reliable people, so I brought Sister Zhao, Zhou Xiaodong, and Fang Xiaoyu with me. You might not know them very well, but you should have seen them before. Li Xiaoluo had indeed seen Zhou Xiaodong before. As for why he mentioned Zhou Xiaodong specifically, it was because she had left a deep impression. It's like back in school, when you'd remember the school beauty especially well. If that school beauty just happened to be your type, or if you'd had a crush on her, then the impression would definitely be even deeper. Zhou Xiaodong was the acknowledged great beauty in Li Xiaoluo's company, with a gorgeous face, a tall figure, and she often wore high heels with stockings and short skirts. Those silky, shapely legs of hers. Li Xiaoluo had only sneaked a billion glances at them in his daily life. He believed all the men in the company were the same kind of guy as him. There was another woman named Fang Xiaoyu, of average looks, but she was wearing an ultra-low-cut yellow suspender top. Very fair-skinned. This woman really dressed boldly. If Li Xiaoluo hadn't been reborn, he definitely wouldn't have been able to control his gaze. After all, as long as a man doesn't have psychological problems or physical problems, he likes to look. It's just that now Li Xiaoluo had long since become immune to ordinary women like Fang Xiaoyu. After the apocalypse, there was no shortage of ordinary women like this. The people Li Xiaoluo wanted, if not all at Shen Miaomiao's level, at the very least had to have supernatural talent. Looking at the women Old Wang had brought, Li Xiaoluo remembered that Zhou Xiaodong seemed to be from the HR department. He forgot about Fang Xiaoyu, but she definitely wasn't from the sales department either. So Li Xiaoluo looked at Old Wang and said, I may be busy here for several days. Are they all okay with that? Before Old Wang could speak, Zhou Xiaodong beside him hurriedly said, I can. Our department isn't busy right now, so I can take a long leave. Fang Xiaoyu said coquettishly, Brotherly, I don't have a problem either. Being able to work for you. Even if I lose my job, it doesn't matter. At worst, I'll just follow you from now on. Zhou Xiaodong came for the money, because she wanted to make money. Fang Xiaoyu came because of the tycoon Li Xiaoluo mentioned on the phone. Whether he was self-made rich or rich second generation, she liked them all. It's just that she never could have imagined that the tycoon was actually Li Xiaoluo, that colleague she had some impression of before, but who had never stood out. And Li Xiaoluo even seemed not all that interested in her. Don't ask Fang Xiaoyu how she knew. Women's intuition. But the less interested Li Xiaoluo was in her, the more interested Fang Xiaoyu became in Li Xiaoluo. In Fang Xiaoyu's heart, weren't tycoons all this aloof? They had that privilege. As for those simps who hovered around her all day, their eyes practically falling into her clothes, she had no interest in them at all. As for Old Wang and that Sister Zhao, the reason they came so quickly was because the money Li Xiaoluo offered was simply too much. It made it impossible for them to refuse. No matter what each person's purpose was for coming, since they were here, Li Xiaoluo would use them first. Anyway, he was planning to use them for free, and he believed they would all work hard. Li Xiaoluo said, All right, I'll first go over your job duties and your compensation. First, Old Wang and procurements, that's Sister Zhao's task. You are to help me purchase supplies. You don't need to haggle the prices too low, but the method of payment is what you need to negotiate carefully. For example, if payment by installments is possible, then try to use installments as much as possible. If only part of it can be paid first, then pay only part first. If it can be delayed, then delay it as much as possible. And the delay should be at least 1 week. Listening to Li Xiaoluo's words, old Wang and sister Zhao both showed strange expressions. Why did the more they listened, the stranger it felt? But Li Xiaoluo ignored them and continued. As for your compensation, old Wang, your daily wage will be 10,000, and the project duration will be about 8 days. If you perform well, there will also be a bonus of no less than your total wages. A formal contract can be signed, and once the project period ends, all wages will be settled immediately in full. After Li Xiaoluo finished speaking, old Wang immediately said weakly, Young Master Li, what exactly do you want us to procure? I'm a little scared right now. A daily wage of 10,000. 8 days means 80,000, and the bonus is no less than the wages, so that's another 80,000. Damn, calculated like this, they'd earn 160,000 in 8 days. This wasn't just a big job anymore. It might be criminally serious. Although old Wang liked money, and the pressure of his mortgage made him desperately need money, he didn't dare do anything seriously criminal. Otherwise, the house and girlfriend he had worked so hard to support would end up benefiting someone else. Actually, although the wages Li Xiaoluo offered were extremely high, one could even say astronomical, earning 160,000 in 8 days was something many people might not make even in 2 or 3 years. However, only Li Xiaoluo himself knew just how much of a ruthless penny pincher he was. Because the project duration was 8 days, but by then the apocalypse would already have begun, so he wouldn't have to pay a single cent in wages at all. But Li Xiaoluo felt no guilt whatsoever. After all, they'd be working for some other capitalist anyway, so why not let them contribute the last of their usefulness to him? Nothing wrong with that, right? At the very least, by offering them such high wages, they would be very happy these next few days, wouldn't they? Since Li Xiaoluo had called them over, he naturally had already made preparations. He took a small notebook out of his pocket and handed it to old Wang. Some of the things I want to buy are mainly food, and of course there are also some other supplies. And later on, depending on my mood, I might buy whatever I want. Take a look, all of you. If you can do it, then do it. If not, I'll find someone else. Old Wang hurriedly took the notebook, and Sister Zhao beside him, though the oldest, also couldn't wait to lean over. There's nothing shameful about making money. On the small notebook it was written, First, daily food purchases, 5,000 McKinsey family buckets per day. Master Song's private kitchen, Overlord farewell chicken, boiled fish, spicy yellow beef, spicy crayfish. 1,000 servings per day. Marinated dishes / cold dishes, marinated pig trotters, marinated beef, chicken feet, chicken wings, duck necks. 5,000 jin per day. Fook Key Seafood Restaurant. Winkles cooked in spicy rice wine. Poached prawns, Russian king crab steamed with garlic, spicy crab. 500 servings per day. All of the above are chain stores, so the quantity can be met. It's not that a single store makes that much every day. The delicacies Li Xiaoluo wrote down were basically all things he loved to eat. Moreover, most of them were restaurants he had eaten at before, or restaurants with extremely good reputations and reviews. Of course, with the exception of the McKinsey family bucket at the very top. Back when he was still in school, Li Xiaoluo had actually been very fond of fried chicken with cola. If he went a few days without it, he'd crave it badly. But after he got a bit older, he basically rarely ate this kind of food anymore. However, after the apocalypse, there was a period when he was so hungry he could hardly stand it, and Li Xiaoluo began fantasizing about all kinds of delicious food. Fried chicken and cola were among the things he fantasized about too, so this time he naturally had to stock up on some. Otherwise, in the future, he wouldn't be able to eat the original authentic taste from before the apocalypse anymore. There was also a note at the end. The procurement of the above delicacies will continue for 8 days, with a budget of no more than 10 million. 10 million looks like a lot, but if all these delicacies listed by Li Xiaoluo are purchased at the restaurant's original prices, with payment settled immediately upon delivery, then it would definitely not be enough to buy as much as Li Xiaoluo wants. For example, just the McKinsey family bucket alone, at 5,000 sets per day, would cost a little over 300,000 a day and more than 2 million over 8 days. So when the time comes, old Wang and Sister Zhao from procurement will need to negotiate. First, such a large order must come with a discount, so that needs to be discussed. Second, there's the payment method mentioned earlier. Li Xiaoluo can accept paying a certain percentage of the total amount as a deposit first, with the remaining balance paid in one lump sum after 8 days. He can also accept paying for the first 3 days upfront. with the payments for the following days settled in one lump sum after 8 days. What he would accept even more is paying the entire amount for all goods in one lump sum after 8 days. But what he absolutely cannot accept is paying everything in cash immediately every single day. From childhood to adulthood, Xialuo has always been a very frugal person. And he is the same now. Xialuo saves wherever he can and gets freebies wherever he can. Buy the most things with the least money. Whether it's legal or not is no longer important. In Xialuo's memory, the apocalyptic disaster first began with an ice calamity as global temperatures plunged to -60 degrees. The ice calamity lasted for about 3 months, and then the ice and snow melted, torrential rain fell from the sky, and basically the whole world was submerged again. Then came a meteor shower from the sky, a virus outbreak, and many humans and animals turned into zombies, while some monsters also appeared. And it was also at that time that people with supernatural abilities began to appear among the human survivors. Ice calamity, flood, zombies, and monsters. These were the 3 disasters Xialuo experienced in his previous life. As for whether there were other natural or man-made disasters afterward, Xialuo did not know. So in the procurement list Xialuo showed Old Wang, besides the purchase of those delicacies, there was also the purchase of some other supplies. For example, medicines. Basically all common medicines in pharmacies should be included. For now, tentatively purchase 100 units of each, and then see whether they have channels to obtain some special drugs for treating acute illnesses. Actually, once the apocalypse reached the stage where people with supernatural abilities appeared, such people basically no longer had use for ordinary medicines. Only those ordinary survivors barely clinging to life still needed medicine to treat illnesses. The medicines Xialuo prepared were basically meant to deal with the early stages of the apocalypse, the ice calamity, and the flood, so he did not buy too much in terms of quantity. Then there were some cold weather supplies, such as cold-proof clothing, thermal underwear, cold-resistant gloves, and so on. There were also some items for dealing with floods, such as diving equipment, waterproof suits, and even motorboats, assault boats, small yachts, and so on. Finally, in terms of food, besides those prepared delicacies, Xialuo also requested a one-time bulk purchase of large quantities of ingredients. Among them were 200 tons of rice, 200 tons of vegetables, 200 tons of fruit, 200 tons of pork, 200 tons of lamb, 200 tons of beef, 200 tons of snacks. Altogether, it added up to about 2,000 tons of various foods. It's not that Xialuo isn't generous enough to just buy 20,000 tons of each kind of food. First of all, he naturally didn't have that much money. With an order of that scale, even if he only had to prepay 30% of the goods, Xialuo still wouldn't be able to come up with it. Second, there was no need for it, because Xialuo's space was only 2,000 cubic meters for the time being, which was enough to hold about 2,000 tons of supplies at most. There were many supplies Xialuo wanted to buy, and many things he needed to do as well, which was also why he had called people like Old Wang over. If he really had to procure so many supplies by himself, and also find people to renovate 2 Safe Lords mansions, not to mention whether there would be enough time, he would definitely work himself half to death. In any case, money was worthless in Xialuo's eyes now. By the day the apocalypse arrived, he intended to spend every last cent of it. So anything that can be solved with money is no problem at all. Besides, calling Old Wang and the others over basically doesn't cost a cent. They're free labor, so it'd be a waste not to use them. After Old Wang and Sister Zhao finished looking over the things Xialuo wanted to buy, they were directly left a bit dumbfounded. Although these foods and supplies were all common items, they were definitely not the contraband they had imagined. But precisely because they were so common, Old Wang and the others were stunned. Because the things Xialuo needed to buy were truly all kinds of miscellaneous items. And the quantities were also outrageously absurd. Who buys 5,000 McDonald's family buckets at one time in a single day? Who buys marinated meat by the ton? How many people is that supposed to feed? If there aren't many people eating, they'd probably be eating it till the end of time. But Xialuo didn't explain much to them. Since he was paying them to work, he was the boss. After everyone had roughly looked things over, Xialuo said, "So, how is it? Does anyone have any questions? If anyone doesn't want to do it, you can leave now." The purchaser, Sister Zhao, was the first to hurriedly say, "Boss, I have no problem. I'll do whatever you instruct me to do." Old Wang originally wanted to ask a few more questions, but he still suppressed his curiosity, and quickly said, "I don't have any problem either." Zhou Xiaodong also nodded along. Although she couldn't figure out how Xialuo had suddenly become so rich and started doing such bizarre money-burning things. It wasn't their money anyway, so why bother worrying so much? Besides, Xialuo was offering far too much. As for the last one, Fang Xiaoyu. She quietly walked to an angle where Li Xiaoluo could see her most clearly, then bent forward slightly and said in a coy voice, "Young Master Li, I've always had no objections and listened to you, but just now you only assigned Brother Wang and Sister Zhao what to do. You still haven't assigned me anything yet." Looking at the snowy white cleavage and deep valley that came into his view, Li Xiaoluo had to admit that this flirt really did have impressive assets. However, he remembered hearing rumors at the company before that Fang Xiaoyu had a boyfriend outside, but inside the company, she also had several ambiguously involved backup men. As for some men who weren't even qualified to be her backup men, she was so arrogant that she wouldn't even spare them a glance. She was extremely worldly and conceited. So Li Xiaoluo and Fang Xiaoyu actually didn't have much contact, and in the previous life they never met again after the apocalypse. So there wasn't really any grudge between Li Xiaoluo and Fang Xiaoyu. Whether Fang Xiaoyu was manipulative or promiscuous had little to do with him. Even if Fang Xiaoyu were taking the initiative to throw herself at him now, Li Xiaoluo still wouldn't be interested. Besides, there was no time for that now. With only these few days, Li Xiaoluo naturally wouldn't waste his energy on this kind of flirt. In Li Xiaoluo's eyes, the main task right now was to hurry and stockpile food and supplies, and then complete the system's activation mission. Only then could he live freely and comfortably in the apocalypse afterward. As for women like Fang Xiaoyu, after the apocalypse, a single loaf of bread could attract a whole bunch of women like her fighting to offer themselves. Li Xiaoluo raised his head and glanced at the few of them, then said slowly, "Since no one has any more objections and no one wants to leave, then I'll continue assigning the tasks. Old Wang and Xiao Zhao will be responsible for procurement. Fang Xiaoyu will stay at the warehouse to receive and inventory the supplies, and Zhou Xiaotong, you'll be my temporary secretary, helping me keep an eye on everyone's progress, and then running errands for me or handling some personal matters." Old Wang and that Sister Zhao nodded, both having no objections. They were now immersed in the sweet dream of earning 20,000 a day. As long as it wasn't illegal, they'd even be willing to act like servants. But regarding Li Xiaoluo's arrangement, both Fang Xiaoyu and Zhou Xiaodong showed a trace of astonishment on their faces and then wanted to speak. When Zhou Xiaodong heard the position of secretary, she felt a subconscious resistance, and Fang Xiaoyu was even less willing to do the job of checking supplies. Instead, she very much wanted to be the secretary, preferably a private life secretary. But before they could speak, Li Xiaoluo directly said coldly, "Let me emphasize this again. I will not make you do anything illegal, but you can only obey my arrangements. Don't bargain with me. If you don't want to do it, then just leave." In fact, even if Fang Xiaoyu and Zhou Xiaodong had not spoken, Li Xiaoluo could more or less guess what they wanted to say. Fang Xiaoyu naturally felt that receiving and checking supplies was very hard work, and there was also no chance to build a relationship with a rich tycoon like him. So she wanted even more to be that temporary secretary. Zhou Xiaodong, on the other hand, was exactly the opposite. In Li Xiaoluo's memory, Zhou Xiaodong was much more self-respecting than Fang Xiaoyu. She was definitely somewhat resistant to the secretary position, but in the end, everything was up to him.